Welcome to the best ever PC benchmark channel. I'm Michael. Today we're diving straight into Delta Force to test how it performs on AMD's Ryzen 7 9800X3D paired with NVIDIA's RTX 3090. Everything is running stock, no overclocks. Capture and analysis are done through Capframe X and Riva Tuner. Let's get into it. Let's kick things off at 1080p, raw resolution, no upscalers, no frame generation, just native rendering, exactly how the game's engine meant it. Ultimate settings. With every bell and whistle cranked to the max, the RTX 3090 puts in serious work. We're talking an average of 150 frames per second with 1% to lows around 70. The frame pacing stays smooth throughout heavy combat, even when things get chaotic with explosions and volumetric fog filling the screen. Visually, this preset is a showcase. You get full-res shadows that stay sharp even at range, dynamic lighting that interacts beautifully with smoke and foliage, and highly detailed environments that never seem to flatten out, even at a distance. Characters are richly textured, reflections are crisp, and everything has a cinematic polish that makes you stop and stare. If only for a second between gunfights. If you want the game looking its absolute best and still running well above 100 FPS, Ultimate at 1080p is very much in the sweet spot. It's demanding, yes, but the 3090 handles it like a champ. High settings. Now, stepping down to high settings, performance takes a nice jump, averaging 200 FPS with 1% to lows at 90. What's impressive here is how little you're giving up visually. Most of the lighting complexity is still there. Volumetrics are slightly dialed back and shadows aren't quite as sharp, but unless you're pausing and pixel peeping, you'll barely notice during actual gameplay. What you will notice is the added responsiveness. Whether you're ADSing during fast peaks or scanning terrain for movement, the smoother frame delivery makes a difference. High settings hit that golden middle ground. Excellent visual quality, but with much more headroom for higher refresh rate play. Low settings. Drop things down to low, and the 3090 goes absolutely wild. An average of 250 FPS with 1% lows at 100. At this point, the game feels lightning fast. Mouse input is razor sharp. Movement animations are fluid. The responsiveness is unmatched. Perfect for competitive-minded players. Visually, sure, you lose some atmospheric flair, shadows get simplified, and ambient occlusion is minimal. But what you get in return is an ultra-smooth gameplay experience that's ideal for high refresh rate monitors. If you're someone who values kill-to-death ratios more than lens flares, this is your preset. Bottom line, at 1080p, Delta Force runs exceptionally well on the RTX 3090 across all presets. Whether you're here for the eye candy or the sweaty matches, there's a setting that fits your playstyle. Hey, quick pause. Over 96% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's flip that. If you enjoy deep, accurate PC benchmarks, hit that like button, drop a comment, and help us hit our 1,000 subscriber goal. Now, back to the data. Let's raise the resolution to 1440p and see how Delta Force treats the RTX 3090. No upscalers, no frame generation, just raw GPU muscle pushing every pixel. Ultimate settings. At 1440p, Ultimate, the RTX 3090 averages around 120 FPS with 1% lows dipping to 70. That's still smooth, but the increased resolution starts to tax the GPU. You'll feel the dips in heavy firefights or when turning corners quickly in smoke-filled, particle-heavy zones. Visually, though, this preset is gorgeous. The higher pixel count really sharpens distant objects and adds clarity to detailed textures, especially on character models and weapons. Lighting remains cinematic, shadows are rich, and every scene feels dense and alive. If you're chasing that immersive single-player or co-op experience with zero compromises to fidelity, this is the setting to showcase. High settings. Dropping to high settings at 1440p brings the averages up to 150 FPS with 1% to lows at 80. And frankly, this might be the sweet spot. You retain a majority of the lighting effects, detailed shadows, and post-processing quality, while opening up enough performance headroom for buttery smooth gameplay. This is where 1440p really shines. The resolution sharpens everything, and the frame rate keeps up with fast movement and aim flicks. Whether you're clearing rooms or peeking snipers from a rooftop, high delivers a flawless balance. If you're looking to stream or record while playing, this setting gives you that perfect middle ground stability. Low settings. On low, the RTX 3090 unleashes its full potential. 180 FPS average with 1% lows at 90 FPS. And at this point, it's all about speed. You lose volumetric effects and fancy shadows, but what you gain is that ultra-responsive feel that competitive players crave. Inputs are tight, frames are consistent, and the whole experience feels like it's tuned for high-stakes PvP. Every frame counts, and this preset ensures your monitor can keep up with every click and twitch. Even at 1440p, the 3090 still dominates Delta Force across all presets. Whether you want eye candy or raw speed, you're covered. Let's turn on the upscalers and see what happens when we let software do some of the heavy lifting. We're keeping frame generation off and testing all the major options: DLSS, FSR2, FSR3, TSR, and XESS at 1080p using the ultimate preset. DLSS leads the pack with a 230 frames per second average. It's consistent, clean, and handles motion very well. Edges are sharp, and image clarity holds up even in fast-paced moments. The RTX 3090 takes full advantage of DLSS's mature implementation here. Whether you're sprinting across open terrain or clearing interiors, there's little to no visible artifacting. If you're prioritizing fidelity and responsiveness, this is one of the best balance options. FSR2 pulls in a 190 FPS average. It's close to DLSS in raw performance, and while it falls just a bit short in fine detail reconstruction, the image is still absolutely serviceable. You'll notice a bit of shimmer on edges or transparent effects under fast movement, but the overall feel remains fluid. For users outside the NVIDIA ecosystem, FSR2 offers fantastic value without much compromise. FSR3, with frame generation turned off, edges out DLSS slightly at 210 FPS average. In terms of sharpness, it's comparable to DLSS with just a hint of softness in texture transitions. The real advantage here is how it handles movement. Animations remain cohesive and stutter-free, especially in explosive sequences or close-quarter combat. For a more modern FSR option, this is the one to go with. TSR clocks in at 200 FPS, it's stable and integrates well with the game engine, but there's some perceptible ghosting during quick camera pans or when multiple effects overlap. Static image quality is impressive, but motion clarity falls slightly behind DLSS and FSR3. That said, it's still totally playable, and a fine option if you're on an Epic Games ecosystem build. Finally, XESS lands at 190 frames per second average. Intel's Upscaler is surprisingly competitive here, offering sharp visuals, particularly in environmental details and lighting transitions. There's minimal artifacting, and motion clarity is better than expected. It's not quite DLSS tier, but it's a close second in image consistency. Overall, all the upscalers perform within a tight margin, but if you're after the best combination of performance and image clarity, DLSS and FSR3 are the clear standouts in Delta Force at 1080p. Now we're shifting gears to 1440p, still running the game on ultimate settings. Upscalers are enabled, frame generation remains off, and we're comparing all the big names: DLSS, FSR2, FSR3, TSR, and XESS. DLSS leads with a 145 FPS average. It holds its ground impressively, keeping the game fluid and clean even during heavy combat. Whether you're scanning distant targets through scopes or flying low in a helicopter, the visual sharpness is excellent. DLSS continues to offer the most stable image reconstruction, especially in complex scenes with alpha effects and shadows. FSR2 isn't far behind, hitting a 140 FPS average. You do lose a bit of sharpness compared to DLSS, especially in finer details like foliage and text overlays, but overall, it's still more than playable. The image holds up well in static and slow movement situations. It's a strong showing, especially for AMD users. FSR3, without frame generation, pulls slightly ahead of DLSS with a 150 FPS average. It's a solid mix of image clarity and raw speed. Textures are handled well, there's no weird shimmering, and while the motion clarity doesn't match DLSS perfectly, it still offers one of the smoothest gameplay experiences at this resolution. TSR clocks in at a 140 FPS average. It gets the job done, but is clearly the least consistent when it comes to motion artifacts and ghosting. The image is stable in open terrain or slower-paced scenes, but when the action picks up, explosions, muzzle flash, smoke effects, you'll start to see some visual breakdown. Still, if you're on an Epic exclusive setup, it remains a functional option. XESS scores a 140 FPS average, landing right between FSR2 and DLSS. It delivers solid results in most scenarios, though sharp transitions, like light flickering or sudden viewpoint shifts, can expose slight aliasing. That said, it's a very capable upscaler, and for non-DLSS users, it's one of the better options in this batch. So what's the takeaway? At 1440p, DLSS and FSR3 continue to dominate, not just in raw FPS, but in delivering stable, high-quality visuals that don't fall apart when the action heats up. And regardless of the upscaler, gains over native rendering are substantial, making them worth enabling if you're targeting higher refresh rates without ditching the eye candy. Now, I'm enabling AMD FSR frame generation to see how much extra juice it can squeeze out of the RTX 3090 at ultimate settings. Starting at 1080p, the difference is staggering. The average frame rate jumps all the way up to 230 frames per second. That's a massive leap over native rendering or even traditional upscaling. The gameplay feels silky smooth with almost zero frame drops even during intense firefights or large-scale explosions. Input latency does increase slightly as expected with frame generation, but it's still responsive enough for both casual play and competitive moments. The trade-off here is well worth it if smoothness is your priority. Moving up to 1440p, the RTX 3090 holds strong with an average of 200 FPS. This is still a significant performance boost compared to running without frame generation. What's impressive is the frame pacing remains rock solid even when the action gets chaotic, no stuttering or juddering. You can push your monitor's high refresh rate without sacrificing the ultra-detailed ultimate settings. Overall, enabling FSR frame generation delivers a massive win for those who want buttery smooth gameplay with high visual fidelity. It's a fantastic option for campaign players or anyone who values frame consistency over absolute lowest latency. Is the RTX 3090 still enough for Delta Force in 2025? Absolutely. Whether you're pushing for top visuals or aiming for high refresh rates, this GPU handles the game well at both 1080p and 1440p. Upscalers and frame generation just sweeten the deal. If this helped you, be sure to like, comment what game you want tested next, and help us hit our 1K subscriber goal. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.